Hello, everybody, and welcome to the greatest podcast in the history of the world. You are talking with Ryan McAniff, and I have my co-host.
And I'm Tara Ballman.
And we are the co-hosts of the podcast Conversations with Tara and Ryan. We have a great guest today, Abbey Dykhouse from the Aevus Group, which does care management. We are excited to have you on, Abbey. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast and for being part of the NAIPC, because you're out of the San Francisco / Bay Area chapter. Welcome to the podcast. All the pressure's on you now. We've done my part. I'm done. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ryan. You did a great job. I think all statements you have said so far are true.
And factual. All right.
We're doing well so far. And it's later in the day for you. It's still 9 a.m. for me. So I've got my caffeine. So if I slip up, it's because I haven't been fully caffeinated yet. You have no excuse.
No, I purposely mess up so that it makes everybody else look good. I'm actually perfect. I purposely make a mistake so that everybody else feels comfortable about the podcast.
Very selfless of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. But thank you so much for joining us. And you know, in the kind of pre-interview before we started recording, one of the things you said that was interesting is that you feel in your neck of the woods of this country that care management isn't as common, in which I think over in the Massachusetts area, and maybe that's because I'm in senior care, it feels like care management is a bit more common. And so since you're in the neck of the woods in which you feel that way, how about you explain what care management is and how you got into it and your unique take on care management?
Great. Thank you. So as a care manager, I do it all for my families. I step on board, and there isn't anything too big or too small that I won't help the family with. Sometimes it's starting with education. Oftentimes, individuals and families will just be confused about what their options are moving forward. Someone has landed in the hospital for whatever reason, and they don't know the ins and outs of the complexities of hospital stays, as well as what their options are to move forward after the hospital stay. So oftentimes I come on as an educator in the beginning, and then we start to piece together resources and care for these individuals and their family and their loved ones that really don't know how to break down the barriers of aging that can be so complex. And I think why I think care management, what I do, is so unique is because, again, there's nothing too small that I won't help with, right? So grandma has broken her femur and she's in the hospital, and the family members, while we're educating, while we're learning how to piece together care, Fluffy is at home and needs a dog walker because there is no one else. Grandma has been living alone. So I also step on board and say, great, let's get you a dog walker, right? So again, I as a social worker, I've worked in so many different silos of aging. I've worked for counties. I've worked for hospitals. I've worked for nonprofits. And in all of those respective roles, there has always been a very small window in which I can help my individuals that are coming to me. And everything else that's outside of that scope, I say, I'm so sorry, here in this agency, in this realm, I can't help you find a wheelchair for your mother, but I can give you a number or a flyer. Good luck, God bless. And that to me felt very challenging for all of these families that are so overwhelmed oftentimes and coming to see individuals in these very different aging silos. So I saw that there was a real big need and a want for someone like me to come and step in and help with anything, no matter what it is, right? Helping connect people to home care, helping connect people to PT, to OT, educating them on what the difference between palliative care and hospice is. There's a lot in this world that all of us are working in, and it can be so overwhelming when individuals are first stepping into it.
What is the biggest challenge that you're finding families are facing right now as they're coming out of COVID and already not knowing what to do with, the situation they call you? And what are some of the common questions you're getting right now?
That's great. Great question. I think right now in these moments, as we're all emerging from COVID, I think what has happened is the aging population has really been very fearful of leaving their homes in a lot of different senses, right? Leaving their homes in the smaller sense of going to get groceries, going to get their podiatrist appointment, but also in the bigger sense where individuals have stayed at home possibly longer than what would be healthy or beneficial to them because they're very fearful of making those moves into different communities, into bigger communities, retirement communities, board and care homes, and skilled nursing facilities. So, and loved ones are also afraid, the people that are stepping in that are potentially making the decisions for these individuals. So I think there's almost a backlog, so to speak, a buildup of these families that have put emergency resources in place to get the house safe enough. But at this point, it's really not the best space that those individuals can be in. And so I, as a care manager, am often getting those first phone calls, figuring out if I can help with the transition of housing. We've got mom and dad in the house. We successfully have kept them safe from COVID, but mom is really starting to decline physically, and dad is starting to decline mentally. What are our next moves, and how can we do that safely? Which I think is still a very relevant question because COVID is still out there. And I think COVID also brought awareness to other illnesses that could really affect aging population as well, like the flu, so I think we still have to be cognizant and aware, especially when we're working with older populations, that this is going to be something that we are going to constantly have to have as a factor as we all work with loved ones and families that are older and aging. They're, of course, the most susceptible and the most vulnerable.
Yeah, I feel like COVID, with everyone being shut down, we all are a little more open to the situations that our parents or grandparents are in. I feel like as an industry, an aging services industry, it's either like a super emergency situation or a super resort lifestyle, come retire with us. And there's this whole world in between, and you are the perfect person to help kind of navigate that world.
Absolutely. And like what you said, there are these opposites, these beautiful resort style communities, let's have a mimosa every day for brunch. And that's great for a certain type of individual that is financially set and still able to live a really good life, right? And then there's people that fall and they land in the hospital, and all of a sudden they have a diagnosis of dementia and a broken femur. And those individuals are oftentimes kind of put into skilled nursing facilities very quickly because hospitals want to get them out as fast as they can, and the family members don't know that they have rights and they can say no. But then there's this middle ground, right? This board and care type community that I think as a care manager is often not known about with people that come to me. The board and care communities are really often overlooked because they don't have fancy websites. And so oftentimes I'm educating on board and cares, or I'm educating on bringing people into the home to make the home safe, to have, care for whatever they need, either 24/7 or piece it out hourly. So I think, again, oftentimes families, they just don't know that they have options.
Have you seen business pick up dramatically because of the amount of people that are concerned about leaving their homes and are concerned about what you were talking about, whether it's COVID or the spotlight that, there's infection control issues in these skilled nursing facilities, and people are sitting there saying, hey, I'd rather have mom or dad be in the home with a care manager than maybe moving into an assisted living or a nursing home, because people want to age in place anyways. But on top of the risks that have now been highlighted the last couple of years, that's really made people reconsider what the plan is moving forward. Have you noticed that, or is that not something that's been going on in your area?
I think, business is definitely booming. And I think there's a lot of factors to the reason why COVID has really cultivated a new set of clientele for care managers. I think, again, what I touched upon before is that people have been isolated in their homes, and family members that live far away haven't been to visit grandma and grandpa or mom and dad lately. And so they don't really know how challenging their lives have gotten. And oftentimes the individuals are not very forthright with potential issues that they're having. And so I think because COVID has created this social isolation in the aging population that are aging at home, there have been a lot of issues building up over the years that all of a sudden need to be addressed now, health-wise, physical, mental, the house falling apart, right? Again, I think because of the lack of physical interaction with all of us, I know I haven't seen my grandma in 2 years. She lives in New York, right? And we used to go back every 6 months, or my mom used to go back every 3 months, and she hasn't had those regular visitors. And so the last time I went to see her a few months ago, I noticed this huge decline in her. And so that's when we talked as a family, and we brought in a caregiver to come and help her take out her trash, right? She's still very fully able-bodied. And as a care manager, when you step onto the scene, if there is no real serious triggering event like a fall, then I really try to put resources in place to help them stay as stable and happy and healthy in their homes for as long as possible. Because like you said, Ryan, there is absolutely a huge population that wants to do that. And it's so important to have those individuals bring care on before there's a catastrophic event, right?
Absolutely. It's one of those things where we've seen it on the West Coast that the traditional side of assisted livings have just not filled up in the way that the memory care sides have, and the nursing homes are accepting people that for even short-term rehab that otherwise they wouldn't have accepted 6, 12, 24 months ago, because times have changed a little bit and they need that revenue and they need the bodies. So it's certainly still very much up in the air, but the overall thing that I've noticed is that just people are much more committed to staying in their home. And I think also part of that is because people have invested in their home. Maybe January 2020, somebody was like, hey, maybe I'll go into that assisted living, right? And then by maybe not mid, but September 2020, 8 months later, somebody's like, listen, this COVID thing is not ending. 2 weeks to slow the curve has turned into 8 months. Let's do a home modification project, and then you modify the home, and then you have somebody that says, hey, listen, we've spent the money on the home, let's utilize it until we absolutely can't. And then all of a sudden those people aren't looking at assisted livings anymore. And that's where I've seen a lot of people who have said, hey, listen, we already did these projects, so we're committed to using home care over assisted living or whatever it might be. And yeah, I think care managers have gotten a lot of calls because of that, because family members are so much more isolated from their grandparents, like you had mentioned, and then all of a sudden, they need an advocate, they need a general contractor of the caregiving jobs that is going to be able to report back on what they're seeing and what's going on, and then if there's anything needed from in-home care to a dog walker, then you have an advocate that can help you out with that. And it seems that's kind of the trend I've been seeing in the Massachusetts area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in California as well, people are investing in their homes, all generations through the spectrum of aging. And I see it in the older generations too. And oftentimes a lot of those investments can be, okay, let's make this home safe. Let's put a ramp in. Let's install grab bars. Let's make this shower, let's take the bathtub out so it's just a walk-in. And people get it to where they feel more comfortable in their house and they want to stay. I will say that for me, when I'm dealing with those individuals that would like to stay in their homes, the big barrier for me with creating this great life at home for them is still that social isolation piece. So I think my job as a care manager is to make sure, okay, what lifestyle you were going to get if you moved into a community, whatever that community looked like, it was still more stimulation, right? You would be able to go to bingo, and you would be able to not have to make your food, and you don't have to do your laundry. But the big piece is that companionship, those people that are around you that are like-minded. And so for individuals that are aging in place, I really have to do a really good job of making sure, okay, so, Dottie is going to stay at home. Her house is great. We've got a wonderful care team in place that are going to help her, but she loved gardening and she had a garden club that she really partook in, and that's what she wanted to go to the community for, or she loved chair yoga. And so I think as a care manager with aging in place individuals, to bring that community and that outside stimulation to them is incredibly important.
The social isolation piece was something I wanted to ask you about, because that was always an issue in our world. And now with COVID, it's made it even worse. And it's coming to light in ways in my own personal life. I think I mentioned before that my father-in-law just passed away, and my mother-in-law, she's in her mid-80s. She's healthy as can be, but her whole life was taking care of him. And now that he's gone and things are still shut down, she's healthy and she's outgoing. She just doesn't know what to do or where to go or where to find the resources. So what do you recommend to people like her, families like her, who are worried about the social isolation piece? How do you get people back out there, or out there at all?
Yeah. And to recreate in a way their life when someone loses their partner, or there is a loss, there is often that grief, that depression that sets in, that is a huge barrier to getting out there in the community and essentially recreating your identity as an individual, which is so hard, again, on any level of aging, but especially in the older years, because a lot of times those partners have been with the other individuals for so many decades and just had this routine. And so first and foremost, I think, Tara, your mother-in-law, I'm sure you guys are educating her on the process of grief. But again, there's that education piece that I always try to step into before we do the implementation, but letting her know this grief process could be very long. There's different stages. You can go back and forth through the different stages and offer up any type of mental health counseling, therapy, if they're willing. That's always a big hurdle, right? But we're talking high dream. Those individuals would start to connect with a mental health individual, whatever that looks like, whether it's group therapy for loved ones that have suffered a loss of a partner specifically. There's a lot of really good care support groups. Or an individual therapist, or just finding that one person that you can connect with and you can talk to, and it manifests. Those people can be very surprising as who they are, right? They can be a neighbor. They could be a daughter-in-law that you never really connected before with, but all of a sudden this is the moment to connect. It could be that best friend that has always been the person to talk to. But I always encourage people that have suffered a loss to just find that one person, if that's all that they can do, and check in with them once a week, twice a week, however long it takes for them to hopefully start getting over the depression stages. But then, having those conversations about what made you happy in the past, right? Was it pickleball? Was it gardening? Was it yoga? Was it spending time with your grandbabies? And really kind of taking a deep dive into, okay, you're not happy now. We completely understand why, but let's start to build this profile of who you are and what made you happy in the past, and let's try and build on that. And just to try and tap into community resources. Senior centers are a fantastic wealth of community activities. So I don't know if your mother-in-law is close to a community, a senior center. I would tap into that. And again, I would tap into whatever community she has, however big or small, right? It could start with one neighbor and have that neighbor go over and check on her, and maybe you take her out and garden, or have family members take her to the senior center or take her out shopping, whatever she liked to do. But it's an all hands on deck type situation when there's that loss, that grief.
Yeah, we're doing what you suggested. We're encouraging her to do things she used to love. She speaks 5 languages and would go to like a French club and read a book in French, and then they discuss it in French. So and our senior centers here have great programs like that, and I'm sure they do across the country. So we're getting her involved in those senior centers.
Good. That's so great. Again, I mean, I have a lot of clients that I've worked with for years, and to this day, they still do not want to have anything to do with a senior center or any type of social event, but I continue to bring it up, right? And even me going in once a week is now a part of their social routine in a weird way. And also what I see a lot is the medical team starts to be a part, or a caregiving team really starts to be a part of that individual's social realm, right? Where they see the doctor so often that the doctor is the person that they start talking to about grief and depression and other things. And that's great. I mean, again, whoever you have around you or whoever you feel comfortable talking to, whether that's your caregiver that comes in to help you, whether that's your doctor that you're on telehealth with every week, whether it's a care manager, but again, any interaction is good.
I like to ask people always you've got such a wealth of information, so I know you're probably not surprised by a lot of things anymore, but is there anything that still surprises you when you get phone calls that you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting this to be an issue, or anything that jumps out at you that you wish people could just know before they call you? Maybe that's a better question.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm continuously surprised by things. I feel like in care management, and again, what I want to be surprised because I don't want to stick to a script, so to speak, right? So when I'm surprised, that means, oh, great, this is something that, true to my mantra, I'm happy to help, and I'm happy to find resources for it, even if it's kind of bizarre or I've never been in that specific space before. But let me think. Yeah, I just started working with a client who needs help. She fell and hit her face, and she is now, we're in this realm that I've never been in before, to find really good plastic surgeons. Facial reconstruction surgery. And it's going to take a long time and a lot of different types of surgeons. It was a very bad fall, and there's going to be a lot of reconstruction needed, but that's I've never been calling, nose plastic surgeons before, and I have. And they often, I've called 3 or 4, and I say, I'm an LCSW, and they say, what does that stand for? We've never had a social worker call us before. But other things I think that I would love to have be more knowledgeable, definitely when it comes to Medi-Cal. When people usually on board with me, they're usually pretty well educated on Medicare by then. And Medicare is a little bit easier to navigate. There are professionals that will help you specifically manage that part. Medi-Cal is this really unsexy thing that not a lot of individuals or family members know about. And so oftentimes I step in and I start working with a family, and very quickly I realize, you qualify for Medi-Cal, and the families or the individual. No, we don't. We make too much money. No, we don't. We've already looked into that, and a lot of people don't know that Medi-Cal, which I'm sorry, Ryan, Medicaid, same. Medi-Cal is our fancy term here in California, but Medicaid. It has a spectrum of what you can qualify it for. It's not black and white. So you can qualify with a share of cost. And then there are lots of very fun, innovative ways to drop that share of cost down over time, but get on Medi-Cal, because then that opens the door to so many programs, to in-home supportive services, to adults daycares, to eventually the assisted living waiver program, right? And so oftentimes I find myself having to educate people on, actually, you do qualify for Medi-Cal. So that's I think something that I constantly run into over and over again.
And that's a nice way to tie it back into the National Aging in Place Council, because that is the whole purpose of why we're here, is to connect professionals and communities and seniors with the education and the resources they need to just successfully age, whether it's in their home or in an assisted living facility or in their family's home, whatever they desire. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about your chapter up there in the Bay Area. And I know you're fairly new to the group, but not so new anymore. You've been with us for a while and done some presentations. So maybe you could tell us what you all have going on up there.
Yeah, we're a fantastic little bunch. And I actually, I really appreciate my NAIPC group, because we're a younger group of professionals, which I have been a member of other aging professional groups. And a lot of times I have noticed that they skew older. And, they're either retired already, or they're, mingling with retirement. And so what I love about our Bay Area chapter, that NAIPC Bay Area chapter, is most of us are just beginning or starting our careers, and we all want to help, the aging populations. And it's nice to collaborate with individuals that are at the same level, where I'm really leaning into my work right now, right? I'm trying to get as many clients as possible and educate as many people as possible. And I feel like my members are in that same space. They're just go-getters, and I can call, I can text, I can email with someone, and boom, right away I get an answer from everyone. So it's really nice to be in that space where I have professionals that if I don't know an answer, and that's very much a part of what I do, right? As a care manager, I don't know everything, but I have the network to help me find the answers. And National Aging in Place Council, my group, has been such a resource to me. I just called my insurance, Susan Lucas. She's a Medicare counselor, and I just called her on Monday, and I was like, is there any way to get Medicare if you're not 65? Right. So they're wonderful professionals that are so happy and eager to reach out and ask questions just like I am, and then hopefully have answers.
I love that. And if anyone is in the area or anywhere in the country and is looking for resources, our website, ageinplace.org, has a directory where you can search and find all of our chapters and all of our members. But if they wanted to get a hold of you specifically, Abbey, how could we do that?
So my website is the aevusgroup.com. You can go there, find all of my information on how to contact me directly. Also, I forgot to plug. So if anyone is up here in the Bay Area, I am doing through NAIPC, we are doing a free seminar on cognitive decline and the stages of cognitive decline and what symptoms to look for on the 12th, which is, I think, I'm going to remember, Thursday, the 12th at 10 a.m. Go to our NAIPC Bay Area website, and there's information, and it's all free. It'll be a wonderful seminar. I'm one of the speakers with Melanie, who's the owner of Driver Cognitive Assessment, who's fabulous.
We should have her on too. That would be a great topic of when did we stop driving? How do you have the conversation? That's a hard one.
Oh my gosh, it's so complex. It's really, that's challenging.
When Uber was cheap, I thought I'd be never driving again. And then the price kept going up. I was like, I guess I'm driving. Because you, at the beginning of Uber, you could it felt like you could go to Timbuktu for like $15. And then you're like, well, why would I ever drive myself when I could get all this work done in the back of the car? But it means things have changed because we deal with it now with all the caregivers. Caregivers don't have cars, and driving around Boston is very expensive. So
yeah, it's so expensive. That's why my next car will be a hybrid, hopefully.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
I can't get one, but
yeah, if you can get one, right?
Yeah, there's none out there.
Well, hey, I mean, good luck with that, but it's going to be interesting. But yeah, absolutely. I think, how did we get on Ubers? What were we talking about?
That was all you, right?
That was ADHD going at it, huh? All right. Well, hey, listen, those Ubers, but what were we talking about? We were transportation. Yes. All right. That will be interesting on when to stop doing that, because it is surprising how many seniors and their family members who are generally younger don't want to use Uber whatsoever. Like when we put caregivers into the home, they're like, it's a caregiver drive, and a lot of them they don't have their own car, and it's a condition for having a caregiver in there. I'm like, well, what about Uber? No, we can't use Uber. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, that's going to be tough. It's getting tougher and tougher. So it's going to be interesting what happens with that.
Yeah. Transportation is always a very complex issue with the aging population, whether they're still driving and that may be an issue, or they can't drive and they're in a wheelchair, right? There's limitations to transportation. It can be very complex. You could have a whole nother podcast on transportation.
Yeah, I'm sure it's real simple for you in the Bay Area as well. I mean, there's no traffic or problems over there anywhere on the coast of California.
No, not at all. It's a breeze.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll all have helicopters one day, so that will work out.
I hope my kids will. They can pick me up in their helicopter.
There we go. Abbey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great hearing your perspective on things and having another member in the NAIPC come on here and let people learn about what you do, and not only learn about what you do, but also help educate them and bettering their loved ones and their parents and things like that. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you both to you guys for giving me this opportunity.
Great.
Tara, any last words?
No, that was fun. We'll have to have you back, Abbey. There's so many other discussions we can have.
I know. Next time we'll narrow it down. Cognitive decline, transportation, whatever.
And thank you all to our listeners. We will catch you on the next one.